Welcome to Guatemala. Located in the heart of Central America, this beautiful country is filled with everything from active volcanoes to ancient Mayan ruins, as well as laying claim to one of the prettiest lakes in the world. With amazing artwork and colour around every corner, bustling traditional markets to explore, and incredible biodiversity, it's a country we've been dying to explore for a long time. Welcome to Guatemala, guys, and welcome specifically to Xela, or as it's otherwise known, Quetzaltenango, which is a bit of a mouthful, so...
We prefer Xela for sure.
Yeah, you'll mostly hear Xela around here from the locals as well. That's the sort of traditional Mayan name of the town. Yeah. Way easier to say.
Xela is a bit off the main tourist trail. You mainly hear people going to Antigua or Lake Atitlan, but Xela is not really on everybody's itinerary. That's why we picked Xela to start our Guatemalan adventures, especially because you can do loads of hikes around the area. There's loads of volcanoes we can hike, so we're really excited to do them. Yeah,
that's right up our alley, and hopefully we get a bit more of an authentic experience as sort of our first impressions of the country. We'll be doing all of our hikes in a separate video to come later, but for now we're just going to go into Xela and see what we can find.
The city of Xela itself isn't dotted with must-see tourist attractions, so unless you love the idea of hiking multiple volcanoes on your holiday, it's easy to see why many tourists choose to give it a miss. However, it's a great destination if you want to learn Spanish, with many Spanish schools around the city, and we did find some pretty interesting spots as we wandered around.
Parque Centro America is the beating heart of Xela, and like many Latin American plazas, it's surrounded by grand government buildings and a cathedral with a huge rotunda in the center. It's a place for locals to relax and vendors to sell their wares.
We actually arrived during Semana Santa, or the Holy Week, which is the biggest celebration of the year in many countries throughout Latin America. So on our first weekend in Xela, the main plaza was crammed with stores, street food, and thousands of locals. It was a great first introduction to the culture and traditions of Guatemala, and we loved watching the different processions that made their way through the central plaza.
Some other interesting places to check out are the Minerva Temple, which looks like it's come straight out of ancient Rome, Puente de los Chocollos, the street art along 19 Avenida, Pasaje Enriquez, which is full of bars and restaurants, and Trama Textiles, a Maya women's co-op of weavers formed during the Guatemala Civil War to support themselves and their families. There's also a pretty grand municipal theatre. It's kind of an odd contrast here because you have sort of these streets and buildings that look really quite run down, but then across the street you have this like huge theatre, like grand theatre. Looks like something you might find in Switzerland or Austria or somewhere like that. Just from walking around initially, we're really getting sort of San Cristobal de las Casas vibes from Xela, which isn't surprising really considering we are actually very close. When you look at the map, we're really very close to San Cristobal. You can actually get buses straight from San Cristobal across the border to Xela.
Yeah, and we did hop across the border when we visited San Cristobal on a day trip.
That's true, yeah.
We were already in Guatemala like for 5 minutes.
Guatemala in general, our first impressions, a lot like Mexico in many ways, just from what we've seen of like the customs here, the food, the people and everything, the dress, all of that kind of stuff really gives us sort of Mexico vibes, which again I suppose isn't surprising considering how close we are to the Mexican border.
I'm probably loving Guatemala and so glad that we visited Xela first. This is probably the least touristy spot along the way, and then it's just gonna get more touristy for us, so we're very glad that
this is like seeing the true Guatemala first, which is really nice.
After a quick lunch stop at Xela, a local chain of bakeries where you can get the most delicious cakes, we headed over to the cemetery.
Guatemala is known for its really colourful cemeteries, and the one in Xela is no different. It's absolutely massive, and as you can see, it's just filled with so much colour. I'd absolutely love to be here on like the Day of the Dead celebrations. It'd be really fascinating to see how it looks then. So it seems like each family has their own sort of site within the cemetery. For example, like this one, it's like Familia Pac. And then this one over here, it's a different family. A member of that family passes away, they're buried like with the other members of their family. It's really like a labyrinth in here. Probably pretty easy to get lost if you don't know where you're going. There's also a huge bustling market up near the Minerva Temple, which is definitely worth checking out if you want to shop like the locals. We found pretty much anything and everything here, from fruit and veg to traditional clothes. Wow, so the market up by the Minerva Temple is just crazy. Like,
yeah, it's huge as well, so you can easily get lost in it, and it's quite nice to get lost in a little bit.
It really reminded us of the one in Oaxaca that we visited. It was the same sort of vibe, but I would say this one was like even more hectic. When you first walk in there, it's just a little bit overwhelming. It doesn't seem like there's any sort of system.
But there is.
Yeah, of course.
I think everybody knows what they're doing and where they're heading.
Yeah.
Except us.
But no, everyone's just working really hard. Directly behind that market is the main camioneta terminal here in Xela, aka the chicken bus terminal.
Yeah, which is hectic as well, as you would expect, because it's kind of everybody shouting the destinations, where you want to go. It can be a bit overwhelming if you just arrive first, but there is a system and people would direct you to the right bus if you ask anybody, so I think it works very well.
In general, like what we've found since we first arrived is that Guatemalan people are just super friendly, super helpful. Everybody says buenos dias to you.
Yeah, you go on the street, everybody's smiling.
First taxi we got in, we were having a nice chat with the taxi driver. He was really helpful, telling us all about what to do in Xela. We just had really good vibes as soon as we got here from all the people, and never felt sort of like unsafe or harassed in any way at all, so it's really nice. Ready for a hike? One of the best acclimatization hikes you can do here, probably the one you want to do first before doing any other hikes, is to come up Cerro el Baul, I think I'm pronouncing that right, which is a small little hill that you can come up to from the center of Xela. Xela itself is about 2,300 meters above sea level, and
so it's about an extra 300 meters.
So you're about 2,600 meters. Good little one to do, especially as, like we said, this is the place where you're going to come to do lots of hiking probably. So it's a good little acclimatization for that.
So when we were reading about how to come here and how to do the hike, it was recommended to come here during the weekend, especially like Saturday, Sunday. A lot of people come up here, so you won't be lonely on the trails. This is very similar to what we had in Mexico as well. Lots of the trails were recommended to do a lot earlier rather than later. It was great, like lots of people are on the trail and on the top.
Like really sort of communal atmosphere up there, people playing football and just coming up and having a good time. I think it had a bit of a bad reputation in the past, but I think it's a little bit more
of course
safe
it's
now.
Best to come in pairs, or if you're more of you, I wouldn't recommend going on your own.
One cool thing about Guatemala that we didn't realize before we arrived here was that they've actually developed a filtration system for their water here. Obviously you can't drink the water straight out of the tap in Guatemala, so we're really impressed to find that they actually have these eco-filtro tanks, they're called. I mean, not every household will have them, but they are available to buy. Basically you just pour the water from the tap here straight into the top of this filter, and inside it's sort of like lined with cork, and the water just kind of seeps through the cork into a tank below and then comes out of the nozzle just down here, and it's fresh and it's clean to drink. We're used to, when we come to these countries, having to either buy quite a lot of plastic bottles or use our filtered water bottles, so it's really nice to have sort of an easy system here where you can filter the water and just put it directly into your bottles. One final place you should definitely check out whilst in Xela is the Fuentes Georginas hot springs near the town of Zunil. You can get there on a tour or independently through a mix of chicken bus and taxi. There are two areas to the hot springs. The first is the more public area, which will be the busiest, and the second is by far the nicer and a lot more private, as there is an additional cost to access this area.
Overall, our first impressions of Guatemala have been nothing but positive, and Xela has been the perfect introduction to this beautiful country. If you can spare the time, we highly recommend visiting Xela, and as you'll see in our next video, the hiking experiences from here are some of the best in the country. Thank you for watching, and see you back in Xela on the next one.